I labeled the video "My Annoying Start to the Mornings with My Annoying Coworkers." Hi, not to include Dano.
We got more things to mourn about, right?
We got what?
We got things to mourn today.
We do?
Like what?
Have you seen the Mosin that got on the wall?
No.
The 1938 Mosin, and someone Googled it.
Uh-oh. You're gonna have to.
It's awful.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Look at you spilling coffee everywhere.
I did
You-
not have my hand on the thingy.
Look at this. Look at the side of your coffee cup.
Oh, that's what happened
Yesterday, yes,
It makes me
yes.
sad.
Look at that. It's terrible.
Terrible.
Terrible. What did you do? What did we do when we say terrible, Liz?
You put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Oh, you put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Wait, you
No.
put the emphasis.
It put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Oh, you put too much emphasis on other syllables.
All right, Vinny. While we're waiting for people to show up here, why don't you go show us the new gun you're going to buy?
No. I'm
Yes.
sad.
Oh,
The internet
hold
doesn't
on.
deserve it.
Hold on. Okay, we're following Vincent.
I'm sad. Not you.
We're following Vincent. We're following Vincent's good side.
Good side. Oh my god. Sell some glasses, Vinny.
Sell the classes.
You're welcome, internet.
Where are we?
Don't we know where we are?
Where are we? Show me, Vincent.
I'm sad. They got me.
This is this an all original?
I mean, as far as many serial numbers on there that there is, it's all matching minus the stock now.
You don't think that stock was from 1930?
No. No.
Oh.
No, I do not. 1938.
Isn't
That-
that inside my gun?
I don't know.
I'm
No, it
sad.
just says used.
I'm just
You're
sad.
gonna offend someone.
It doesn't mean I'm not sad.
It's okay. You can't bring feelings to the ring.
Exactly.
All right. Well, as you can see, we have guns on the walls. We have Vinny's and we have Liz's, and we have stuff. We don't have much in the way of time this morning, so we were not even going to do a live video. But Liz and I started a discussion this morning while we were getting stuff set up for class, and we had to go live. It had to go live. So, Elizabeth, you're supposed to be over here.
Wow, you already went through inventory?
Yeah. We don't have time.
Quick, that's right.
We don't-
Like, you legit did it quick.
We don't have time for inventory this morning
Okay.
because we have to talk about
There's only one person.
sites. I know. That's because we're way too early. Everybody's still asleep.
Go watch it later on the tubes.
So-
YouTubes.
Do you have Jason Brown's phone number?
Do I?
Yes. Why did you poke yourself in the face to say that? Me? Do I have Jason Brown's phone number?
I mean, maybe. I don't think I do, but I
Oh,
don't.
gosh dang it. I do, but I'm doing live. We need to text him.
I do.
Somebody who has Jason Brown's phone number, text him. Tell him to watch. We need his interaction.
do it.
Although we don't have an hour this morning. We only have a few minutes.
Yes. We
So-
got 40 minutes.
We have 40. Well, we have 40 minutes, so we have to be done.
Yes, yes. I have his number.
So,
I think I
okay,
do.
text him.
Get on
Live.
the.
So, the last couple of days, late last week and yesterday, we were talking about. I don't even know what
We were talking about aiming.
We were talking about
Well,
zeros to begin with.
yeah,
Where
and
to
then
zero
we-
your red dot. And then that led to a little bit of discussion of irons versus dots. And then Jason made a comment on that video that said, and if you don't know Jason, he's an okay shooter.
Just okay.
He's just okay. He had made a comment that said, controversial topic. You should always stare at your target, not at your sights. You should be target focused, not front sight focused. Front sight focused is
Garbage.
Front sight focus is what's been taught for since guns had sights. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was probably an NRA thing.
Probably before then,
Right.
but.
I. Yeah. I was-
At any rate, that's a very common thing.
yeah.
Okay, and his argument essentially was, without putting words in his mouth, was that when you look at your target, you can still see your sights. My thought has always been that 100% agree. However, for the newer shooter, it can be confusing because there's so much going on, and that you can only really see one thing clearly. You can only focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah, like a camera.
However, you can see stuff that's out of focus, in front of, or behind, or whatever. One of the huge advantages of a dot is it naturally allows you to stay target focused because you don't have to line two things up, right? With iron sights, you have to get these two things lined up and lined up on your target. So if you're staring at your target, you can't see these clearly, so now your sights might be a little unaligned. It very much goes in line. And so I want to back up for just a second and say that my mind is starting to change a little bit. I've always said that, hey, you got to start off learning front sight focus so that, why do I keep doing this without a gun? Vinny,
What's up?
set your coffee down. Set it down.
Like you have to tell him to set his coffee down
Set it down.
first.
Okay, now, get ready,
Oh boy.
get set,
Go get
go.
an orange gun. Orange gun.
Run.
You didn't
It's
even-
a very slow run to get an orange gun.
You didn't tell him what he was supposed to do.
Well, he can start running. I have time to explain to him the goal while he's
He's
on his
running.
way. He is running.
At least one of your subordinates listened to
Yes.
you.
So, where the hell was I at? Oh, staring at your front sight.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had an orange gun in my hand, this would be way easier, but I don't.
Didn't
yet
you grab
because-
the SIRT pistol? I thought you
No,
grabbed
I
it
did not.
off of Vinny's. Whoa!
Vinny just slid across the floor. We didn't have that. We don't have that on.
We'll pull it up later.
Yes.
Oh
So-
my, that was pretty good.
If I'm trying to aim, excuse me, if I'm trying to aim my pistol and my sights are way off, right, it's very easy for me to see that, okay, I can see my front sight and my rear sight, and that, hey, it has to go this way, and it has to go this way, and then if I stare at this thing, at the front sight, and I have it perfectly lined up in the rear sight, I can still see my target, it's just that my target's blurry. If you do that over and over and over again of getting it lined up and getting it lined up, my thought is that eventually you'll say, hey, I'm tired of moving the gun to the left and down, that I will just push it out there and it'll be lined up. So after many repetitions, that just starts happening. Then it becomes easier to stare at your target, not at your front sight, okay? Because you don't have to worry about lining it up
Precisely,
finely.
yeah.
Yes, precisely. That's a good word for it. Precisely. Thank you for being right
That's
once today.
precisely the precise word.
Yes. So this morning, we're downstairs getting set up for class, and we start talking about this, and that truthfully, staring at the target and still being able to get your sights lined up is a viable way. Is it really viable for students? I don't know. Yes, maybe. So we pulled out a pistol, aimed at a target, and I tried really hard to stare at the front sight. And everything went wonky on me. Like, all of a sudden, the rear sight that I was looking through moved. And it didn't move, it's just the way I was visually perceiving it, it moved. And it caused confusion in me. So that made me think, this is something that, why are you laughing about me being confused?
Well, that's funny too, but I was laughing at work, but
No.
giving me kudos again.
I don't understand him. I just don't. Anyway,
So you were trying
Hi,
really
workman.
hard to focus
I was
on the
trying
front
really
side.
hard to focus on the front side, just like I'm trying really hard to focus on what I'm doing right now, but I keep getting distracted. So when I stared at the front sight, I saw two front sights. Two rear sights.
Rear sights.
The rear sight that I felt like I was looking through jumped to the right.
Now, there's a certain aspect of this is that you're shooting with both eyes open. A lot of times we'll suggest to new shooters that you shoot with one eye closed to
Because of that
really,
confusion.
yeah, leave that.
And that
Double
comes down to
vision.
what we were talking about yesterday, where the gun comes out and you see them like they'll be focusing. All of a sudden you're like, wait a second. And you'll see them moving the gun, Like, what sight am I supposed to look through and at and all that stuff? So the short answer is, I don't know. I might be convincing myself to try. Well, I am convincing myself to try it with a student who doesn't know what they don't know. Right? So it's harder to do with somebody like myself or Vinny or Liz or Workman might be a good candidate because he can't shoot a gun. But to have somebody who's new to this and just try to get them to do it naturally and just, hey, look at your target, understand what sight alignment is and what sight picture is and talk about that stuff, but
you don't have
put the emphasis on staring at the front sight.
So somebody who's maybe shot a little bit already, kind of past the nerves, past the, the safety and all that stuff. So you're just a shooter, but you haven't really, I don't know, dove into this. Sorry, I'm losing my kudos. I'm losing my kudos. But anyway, we want a test subject.
Yes. So we want somebody who's newer-ish to shooting, and I think that you having your sister come out here is a good idea. But if one of you, not Workman, not Jason Brown, that are newer to shooting, then gosh dang it, Jason Brown, we've been talking about you all morning.
Short answer is that we are open-minded, and we want to consider anything that can be a valuable tool to teaching a new student or just bettering ourselves in general. So overall, what we're trying to say is that the concept of staring at your front sight to get a good accurate shot may not be, well, we know it's not necessary. I think the question now is how, teaching shooters, whether they're new shooters or seasoned shooters, and obviously not everybody's going to take advantage of something like this. This is going to be, subjective to different students and their needs. But we love stuff like this. Like anytime that something that we've learned is challenged to the point where we can come out on the other side of this with more knowledge, the better. So that's why we kind of want to test this out. So if my sister might be a good candidate. If you go to Gravy Over Pancakes on Thursday, you will meet her.
Yes.
She's super awesome.
Gravy Over Pancakes. So we forgot to mention that yesterday. This Thursday, if you haven't seen on our Facebook page yet, but we have Gravy Over Pancakes again. Come have breakfast with us down the street at Uncle Bill's on Manchester Road, 8 o'clock next Thursday, just in case we forget to mention at the end of the video again.
Yeah. So if that's something that you'd be willing to do, you'd have to come in here early before we open for a live like this. Or, ideally, we'd like to do it live so we can kind of do it as an experiment. So, email Phil, that one, PHIL @therangeSTL.com.
So, here's my challenge with this. And this is something I wanted to try to articulate with you, Jason, the other day in the comments, is this is not, so step this aside just for a second, this is not an uncommon way that we see people aim at their target. Okay?
That's how they do it in the movies.
Yeah. I'm not looking at my sights. Now, like we briefly talked about yesterday, is this an acceptable, am I aiming my gun? Absolutely, I'm aiming my gun, right? I'm just not using the sights. I'm aiming the gun, but I'm not using the sights. This is acceptable at, an arm's length or 2 yards or 3 yards, maybe even, depending on the experience level and comfort level of the shooter.
But what about
I can shoot my gun this way.
15 yards or 10 yards or...
Yeah, when you step back to 10 yards, it becomes less viable given that the acceptable level of accuracy is of a adequate size. We're not talking about a 5 foot by 5 foot board or something. But this is not uncommon to see people, a new shooter, when a target's up at 5 yards, just push the gun out and shoot. Bang. Okay? Or this one. This looks utterly ridiculous. This we see all the time.
Yeah, well, we
All
say
the
stare
time.
at your front sight.
Yeah.
So you're staring at your front
Yeah,
sight. but
and
you get to look
that's
through the
not
little
wrong.
window. Yeah.
That's really not wrong.
I think overall the concept of staring at your target is is going to be helpful for a newer shooter. But the other side of this is, if you do get the shooter that's pretty good with their trigger control and all that stuff, and they can get a bullseye, are you, well, I don't know. Basically what we're trying to decide is if you have to stare at the front sight to fine tune to get a bullseye. What you're saying, Jason, is that you can still get a precise bullseye.
Yeah, we're talking precision now.
Precision,
like hit
yeah.
the X, not the X ring, not the 10 ring.
So you can
but hit the X.
Yeah,
Do you stare at the front sight?
hit a 5-inch bull at 15 yards without staring at the front sight. That's kind of what I think, and maybe we're talking about two different things. Maybe we're, obviously you're a competition shooter, and the concept of drilling out a little bullseye is maybe not something that you work with a lot. I don't know, but definitely.
So it's an interesting thing, and I think that it's worthwhile to talk about, right? As long as people still understand sight alignment, sight picture, like the front sight has to be in there somewhere, whether it's perfectly lined up or not. Who cares, right? Let the gun move around. We do try to explain that you're supporting weight out in front of you. It's going to move. Just let that happen. Don't. If you stress so much about it trying to be perfectly still, you're going to get tighter and tighter and more tense, and then it's going to shake more and more, and it's just going to get worse. Except the wobble, that's okay. It can wobble around inside that. At 5 yards, it can move around a lot and still be within a 10 ring.
Yeah.
Right?
And Jason, what are you talking about? I think the amount of training to get there is crazy. Like a bullseye shooting, or just to the point where you don't have to stare at your front sight to get a good accurate shot. What do you mean? Elaborate, please. There's a guy who can clean a plate rack at 10 yards from retention faster than most people and rip off 6 shots.
Yeah.
But that guy has shot several. Yeah, and well, okay, so. Well, I guess shooting from retention it's never going to be you're using your sights. But one of the things
I would also argue he's not shooting from retention. He's shooting from the hip.
Well, to me, that is retention.
No,
he's shooting from retention.
He's shooting like this. He's
Oh.
not. He's
Oh, I
not
see.
shooting.
It's not like a tuck.
Yeah, it's
like
not.
it's not a,
Yeah, pectoral index. He's shooting from here. It's easier, and this is
it's
in my very limited experience with doing either one. It's easier to shoot here because you can more easily aim the gun, right? Because I can see it. Even if I'm looking at the plate rack, I can see the gun down here.
So he says to be able to make bulls without aiming hard. So aiming hard, you're saying, is the concept of staring at the front sight and switching focus between your bullseye and your front sight and making sure those things are working together. That's what you're defining as aiming hard, correct? Hi, Ritz. Good morning.
Good morning, Ritz. And competitive retention. Got it.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has maybe shot
Yes, okay.
1 or 2 rounds ever.
Yeah. Just a couple. Yeah.
Talking about Taryn, right? I'm assuming that's who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's
Oh yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And have you ever watched him do it? He races.
Oh, yeah.
I think Latham maybe.
No, I guess
Maybe.
I've never seen him do that.
I think he races Latham. I think it was Latham. I don't remember, but
you can
it's
clearly,
crazy. It's crazy how fast he is. It's just shooting from the hip.
yeah.
Bonkers. But at any rate, that's a whole nother.
But not really though. So with the SIRT pistol, we have a SIRT
He
pistol.
races
It's,
Vogel. Okay.
it projects a laser when you press the trigger. But I'll use it in class sometimes, and I'll hold it down here by my hip, and I can pretty much point it wherever, and it'll go where I'm wanting it to.
Yeah, but a
for the
plate
most part.
rack at 10 yards. That's
100%.
yeah,
I'm not
that's-
trying to be precise, but my point is the more you do it, the first couple times
Yeah.
I did it, it was like behind my head, The more that you do it, obviously, you build that muscle memory. Also, to the point of aiming your gun, you're not going to aim your gun and have a natural point of aim without using your sights for a period of time, at least roughly. And I think that's where we're ending with this, is like you use a rough adjustment of your sights to get an ideal pistol shot at most pistol distances. Do a hard aim to get those bullseye precise shots at distance or a smaller target. Yes? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, we still want a guinea pig, though.
Yeah, we do. We want a guinea pig. So if you want to be a guinea pig, and it can't be Jason Brown, it can't be Nick, it can't be somebody who's shooting even at a relatively high level. I mean, I'm going to say it can't be me, and I'm not a high level shooter, but I want somebody who's new to this that, like Liz said, maybe you've shot a gun a couple of times, and so the nerves are away. You know it's not going to hurt you when it goes bang, so we can potentially be past that a little bit. And I want to hear your words when you try a really, really hard front sight focus. What do you see? Because like I said, this morning for me, it completely changed how I see the gun, because I do look at the target. I can still see my sights and that they're lined up, and that my front sight's lined up between my rear sight, and it's relatively even across the top. But if I really, really, really stare at the front sight, all of a sudden my back sight doubles, and it gets very confusing for me.
But that's different than what you've typically seen using your iron sights. So what
And
was
I think that's because I was target focused and not realizing
it
that I was
because you're
target focused.
a good enough shooter that's not going to matter so much, which is I think Jason's point.
Yeah, and I think that's why when we started polling people, like, hey, what do you see when you stare at the front sight? And most people are saying 2 rear sights. That was more common because they were legitimately staring at the front sight. I felt like I was staring at the front sight because I could see it, yet I see 2 full guns. So, I don't know. It's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see if we can get somebody in here that, if you want to volunteer, if you're not watching it live right now, or you don't want to throw your name out there, again, you got to come in. You got to be able to come in early, 8 o'clock in the morning or so. Be willing to do this live, and
We'll provide the gun, and
yeah, we'll give you some. We'll give you ammo. We'll provide the firearm if you don't have one. Don't worry about any of that. But just shoot us an email. Send it to training@therangestl.com. That way, either her or I can get it, and we'll set something up and try. That way, we can try to hear the thought process of somebody who doesn't know what they don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very interesting to me.
Yes.
So thank you, Jason, for challenging us and allowing us to think through it differently. Although I also hate you because now we have to dive into it. Literally, we went downstairs to hang targets up and come back upstairs, and it turned into a 20-minute discussion on sights. What you guys said yesterday is awesome. With one shot, there's a million ways to shoot a gun. Once
Once.
quick follow-up become...
Say it out loud so people on the YouTubes
Okay.
can hear the question.
Very true. It's hard to see that. I gotta completely block it up so I can see the text. What you guys said yesterday is awesome. With one shot, there's a million ways to shoot a gun. Once. Exactly. So I can hold the gun just like this and get everything lined up and pull the trigger and hit a bullseye. But being able to do that repetitively, quickly, that's not going to happen with a terrible grip like that. Quick, accurate follow-up shots reduce the number of acceptable misbehaviors immensely. But teaching irons first requires us to start from 0 misbehaviors, and we skip a lot of that evolutionary. Gosh, dang! Why you gotta use so many big words? We skip a lot of that evolutionary reduction that I think will be natural with a dot.
I definitely appreciate what you said about having a student start with a dot. And sometimes we will, especially if they come in with a gun and they already have a dot. If a student comes in for a basic handgun and they've never shot before, we'll likely give them, a Glock 44 with irons on it. We do have a couple training guns that have optics on them, and if we cover it in class and that seems interesting to them, we'll let them use one of those as well. And sometimes we'll just bring them down extra and be like, hey, have you ever shot a gun with a red dot before, and try to introduce them to it. One of my apprehensions about explaining or only having a new shooter shoot with a dot is that if they go out to the floor and buy a gun with irons, since they're way more prevalent, or maybe they inherited a gun, someone gifted them a gun, whatever, they already have a gun with irons on it. I want the curriculum to basically be irons until optics are become irons. You know, like they're so prevalent. Like with
so close to that, though. I don't.
sporting rifles. I mean, it's like you buy an AR, you're gonna put an optic on it. It's like it's almost pointless to teach people how to shoot irons anymore with the AR.
I don't hate somebody only shooting a dot, and I used to. I used to feel very much like you that I had to teach somebody irons first, and like you said, we
I don't
primarily
think
do.
Yeah.
And I think because of the exact reason that you stated, that it's without a doubt the more prevalent thing. A lot of people see buying a gun and spending $600 or $700 on a handgun, and then spending another several $100s on a dot. Like, I'm not ready to do that yet. Is that little electronic thing that costs almost as much as the gun worth it to me? I'm only going to shoot this for self-defense.
Only.
Right? Yes. I don't need that newfangled thing. I love them and I hate them. When I have somebody who's really struggling with their irons and shooting their gun muzzle up like that, having them use a dot is great because it forces them to get out there and all of a sudden they're like, hey, can you see the red dot in the middle of the window? No. Or what they say is yes, but what they're seeing is the front sight
Yeah.
of the window. We
Yeah.
see that
All the
a
time.
lot,
I want to
okay?
take the damn front
A
sights
lot.
off. Yeah, I see a green dot. No, that's the.
Vinny's very good at this. But if there's a dot on there, then it has to be lined up in front of their eye for them to be able to see it. We had a gentleman in a class who was a cop for a bazillion years. I don't know, 30 years or something. Retired, was getting a private security gig, and was shooting and was having struggles with his eyes and vision and blurriness and because of degradation of his vision. And he shot my gun with a dot on it. He was like, I never ever seen that before, but I have to have one because it's freaking awesome. I love it. I love that because it was such a struggle for him because his eyes were getting so bad to be able to see that everything was good here and good on his target. That made a huge difference. So there's some gigantic advantages to them. Are they the end all be all? Absolutely not. Is being able to shoot irons important? Yes. Do I think you can learn to shoot irons from shooting a dot? Absolutely, because it's going to force you to have a better presentation or at least better alignment sooner, even if you're not worried about presenting to the target just yet and having it show up right away. But this gun is for self-defense. I don't need a dot. Ritz, you're not alone. A lot of people do. My swapping focal planes takes time, and that's 100% legit. Your eyes can only focus on one plane. That doesn't mean, like Liz and I were talking this morning, just because your focus on your target is 10 yards away, doesn't mean that everything in between you and 10 yards is so blurry you can't see it, which is kind of where we're going with this. You can stay target focused and still see this, assuming your vision's good enough, right? There's a varying degree of blurriness between focused and your eyeball, right? Everything in between there it's a gradual change, and for some people maybe more gradual or less gradual.
I don't know where you're at now, but I had one thing I wanted to say about dot with the.
That's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say about that. But it's not. I still have something to say. I'll say that later. So one thing I've noticed with new shooters and dots, sometimes, well, it just depends. It's a subjective thing, but whether the dot drives them crazy because it's moving all around, or whether the sights drive them crazy because of the focus issue and all that stuff, I would say probably 30 to 40%. I mean, let's go 20 to 30. Don't like dots as a new shooter, just because of it's like seeing a laser on the target bounce around, and it makes them nervous even more because that thing, they can see how much the gun is moving. Whereas the iron, since it just doesn't move as fast.
See, I'm going to argue that, and I'm going to say that I think that we tell them that's why they don't like it. I think most people get frustrated with it more quickly because they push it out there like this and they can't see it.
No, it's when they see it, but it's because it's dancing. Because it's just like the front sight wobbling. They've articulated it to me before.
I
so.
think because you've told them you don't like it because as you can see it moving around, right? Yep,
Mm.
that's why. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you say it and then they agree with you.
There's definitely been cases like that, but I did not come to that conclusion because I just willed them to. They've told me that to the point where, okay, I'm seeing a pattern. So and I've seen it with lasers too, whether it's an optic or it's a laser. You see the laser dancing around downrange. People get anxious
that's-
about different
yeah.
things, and seeing
That
your
moves around a hell of a lot more though.
Yes, but what I'm saying is just the concept in general of it moving and dancing around. You can see more clearly that your gun is moving with an optic or a laser
staring at it.
than you.
Start the target. You won't
You're
see it
being
moving around.
combative.
You're right.
I'm gonna kick you.
You're being combative. I'm gonna kick you.
That makes sense to me.
Both were frustrating when I was new to shooting a dot. So the most frustrating thing to me is when I was, and even still, I talked about yesterday. It happened to me yesterday or this weekend. The most frustrating thing to me was finding it right away. Like I wanted it to show up in my vision right away, and that took effort on my part to make that happen sooner.
Would you agree that some things frustrate you that don't frustrate me,
Oh yeah.
Vinny? Same thing. Some things nothing
I
frustrates
don't know.
Vinny.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't know that anything frustrates Vinny.
But
Yeah,
could you agree that you might get frustrated over something different than what Joe Schmo does?
Yeah, I agree.
I would agree with both. With newer shooters, the moving of the dot, that wobble of the dot, I've seen it frustrate people.
Yeah.
With newer shooters and my advanced shooters that I've worked with, all of them always ask me questions. How do I find my dot quicker and easier and better? And that's the number one thing I get asked all the time in basic level classes and advanced level classes. Some newer shooters, usually that is the problem. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I've seen both.
Yeah.
I've seen both more times than I can count. One weird one that I had, it was not yesterday,
You weren't here
Sunday.
yesterday.
Sunday, I had a private lesson, mom and daughter. We were just trying different guns because they wanted to buy a gun. Mom shot my gun. DR920P, full-size gun with a dot. Loved it. Of course. It's my gun. She loved it. She thought it was awesome. Daughter shot my gun.
Hated it.
Did not like it because of the dot. She wasn't a fan of the dot. She's like, I don't like it. The dot seemed complicated. She shot the exact same freaking gun without a dot.
Loved it.
And loved it.
Yeah.
It was, and she didn't realize it was the same gun.
Yeah.
But I literally had a DR920 and my DR920P. Negligible difference between the two. One had a dot, one didn't. Mom loved the one with the dot. Daughter hated the one with the dot. Loved the one without the dot. And they were when I told her they're the same gun, she's like, "No way."
Yeah.
They felt completely different. It's the
yeah.
same gun.
And I agree, and I also agree with you
It's
that
hit or miss.
finding the dot, and to your point too, finding the dot is more of a struggle to any shooter than the dot wobbling. So while the dot wobbling is a concern for some people, not firing it or not finding it is more of a concern. So I definitely agree with that.
Okay.
But
I challenge you next time that when somebody's shooting a dot and they're getting frustrated with it, just ask them what's frustrating about it, rather than introducing are you frustrated because you can't find it, or are you frustrated because it's moving around? Just what about it is hard?
Yeah.
And I'd just be curious to.
And one of the reasons why I don't think it's finding it
We only have a couple minutes.
in those cases is because when someone's trying to find it, they'll get the gun out there and they're doing this number.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that. It's after all that's happened. So they'll find it and then they'll wait for a long time and then they'll Shazam it. And so we'll talk about it or whatever. And it's just like, and then we'll try a different gun. It's usually lessons like that where we're trying different guns. They're like, do you like optics? Do you don't? Or do you not? And that's usually when those things will pop out, is when you're doing a lesson like trying to determine what gun
The
they
big
want.
things that I would do if that became an issue is turn the brightness down. Make sure, you know, how the rental guns are. Somebody rents it and they,
Adjust it.
first off,
Stop adjusting.
don't
dots.
freaking adjust the damn dots, okay? If they're on our guns,
Don't.
they're good,
Yes.
all right? Don't adjust them. I could go downstairs right now and zero a gun. It'll shoot lights out 10 yards. Come back next week.
Shoot
and
high right.
I'll aim at my target and hit high right.
Yeah, but the dots are
Because
shooting low left.
somebody else shot the gun and moved it because they were shooting low left. This dot's off. Rank,
Yeah.
rank. Oh, now it's on. Okay, don't adjust the dots. Leave them alone. Okay. Where the hell was I going with that? Damn it.
Ooh, Phil got feisty.
Yes. I don't even know. What the heck
Dots
I'm
are
talking
good.
about.
Yeah. Adjust
I
the
don't know.
you said
Adjust the brightness.
suggestion of
Yeah,
adjusting.
because people mess with them and they turn the brightness way up so they can find it faster.
Mm-hmm.
That's counterproductive because then it draws your eye to it.
Yeah.
There's a balance, right? And I talked about this, I think, last week, that if the dot's too bright, you're going to stare at it. If the dot's too low, you're going to stare at it because you're trying to figure out where the hell it is.
Yeah.
So it's finding the right balance, and that can also be a subjective thing depending on your own vision. But in general, I think that if we turn it down lower and not default to such a bright setting, and get away from, especially indoors, the auto brightness changing on the house. I love it. Outdoors, I think it works great. Indoors, it does not
Tough
work.
here, yeah, because the lights are so bright here.
Yeah. And remind them to stare at the target. I think that they see it moving a lot more. When you get sucked into that dot, you'll see that thing dancing around a lot more.
That's a good point.
If you stare
Yeah.
at the target, it's still moving around the same amount, but you're not
nice.
as worried about it.
Yeah.
It's moving around inside of whatever our acceptable level of accuracy. If you're staring at it, it looks like it's dancing a ton.
Yeah. And what's a new shooter's acceptable level of accuracy in their mind? He's big.
Which is why
Which is so tough, and it's tough to get them out of that mindset.
which is why I love our targets that we use for the basic pistol
Yeah,
class.
me too.
We have a 12-inch circle. It's nothing in
white,
it. No
yeah.
lines, no nothing, just a 12-inch circle. And it's
so nice.
So nice. Because people would be so mad. They'd be shooting at 4-inch circles and be upset with themselves because they weren't hitting the X. Right? Who cares? Like,
Yeah.
you're learning how to shoot the gun. Like, you
Yeah.
don't even know how to hold the gun yet. Who cares you're not drilling out the X? So we just got rid of it. We got rid of all the lines, got rid of the X's, just have this thing, and we have some maybe it's a 10-inch circle and some 4-inch squares or something. I don't remember exactly what it is, but I love it. Anyway, we got stuff to do. So if you have any questions, hit us up real quick. Don't tell me how to adjust it. You can do whatever you want, Nick.
Anyway.
Most people think they can. Oh, well, I'm paying to rent the gun. I'm just going to adjust everything. I don't understand.
While you're at it, adjusting our optics, make sure you borrow some of Phil's dummy rounds and not return them.
Aneurysm.
Yes.
The big thing I'm working through is trying to stop looking at a target and start looking at the shot I want to take, so the gun meets me there. Break. I'm very excited about this.
So
Hi, Papa.
you'll spend a relatively significant amount of time in Scott's class doing that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kind of like
It's-
visualize the shot
Yeah.
instead of
So,
watching
and
it
not to steal his thunder, but to me this was an eye-opening thing. If this is what your acceptable level of accuracy is, right? You're trying to hit this box at whatever distance. Assuming your grip is good enough that your dot tracks up and down, your vision should really be here. And when you're seeing that dot moving across that line, you're just shooting the gun, right? You're shooting, which is a huge advantage, in my opinion, to shooting fast and accurate. With a dot is it's really hard to track that front sight and see that thing moving like that. But with a dot, you can see a red streak or a green streak or whatever, and you can get that thing streaking across your acceptable level of accuracy and just let rounds go, man. And awesome. When you can let it go in your head.
Yeah, Jason, that's a huge point. That's a challenge for me too. Is just kind of trusting the shot, visualizing, accepting that it's happening, and just letting it go.
Sing it, Vinny.
What?
Sing it. Let it go.
I don't sing.
Yes, you do.
I just make jokes.
Yes, right, Joe.
I don't sing. I just make jokes.
Hold
It's
on.
important to let it go.
Start writing your side for it. He'll be forced to sing.
Yeah, he'll be forced to sing it. Yes.
Just let it go.
Okay, we gotta go.
Yes, we got to go. So that means you guys got to
You guys
go.
gotta let this
Can't
go.
stay here. Sorry.
Gotta let it go.
Guys, if you need something, come see us. 14803 Manchester Road. If you want to be our test subject,
There we go.
if you want to be our test subject, shoot us an email, training@therangeSTL.com. Please be somebody who's a new-ish shooter. Even if you're brand new, that'd be fine too. But if you've shot a little bit, you're not you're not a Jason Brown, okay? Let us know that you'd be interested. Again, you got to be willing to come out here early in the morning, probably on a Monday morning, and let us ask you questions live on FaceTubes. So, you guys have a super awesome day. Stay safe, be nice to one another, and we'll get to you. What are you doing?
Toodles.